Hello everyone, welcome back to our Sky Tonight program. My name is Seth Mayo, I'm the curator of astronomy for the Loman Planetarium, and in this episode we're covering the dates of March 1st through March 7th, and what we'll have a chance to talk about is that exciting NASA Perseverance rover that just landed on Mars successfully on February 18th. I want to show you the video of that landing. It is extraordinary, and some of the pictures that were first taken by the rover on the surface of Mars. Then we're going to celebrate that really cool planetary party going on in the morning this week. And then we're going to follow that with a nice overview of the celestial highlights for the entire month of March. So let's get to it. As you gaze up high in the western sky in the evening, we still have a wonderful view of that reddish looking star-like object that doesn't really twinkle. Of course, the planet Mars that we see here. And Mars is still within that really nice constellation of Taurus the Bull. You can see the Pleiades star cluster just above Mars and the V shape of the nose of Taurus that we see here. And as we look at Mars, it's really fun and exciting to think about there's a new rover on the planet. And this rover, of course, called Perseverance, landed successfully on Mars on February 18th. And in last week's episode, we talked about the live kind of virtual watch party that we did. It was really, really fun to follow along with NASA as they brought this rover down. Now, after that last video was published, NASA released a landing video. This really cool video that they put together from all of these cameras they put on board the rover, on the descent stage, and it captured all these different perspectives and stages of the landing in an amazing definition. It's awesome. So in just a moment, I'm going to show you that video. I'm not going to narrate. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let the video play out and let it speak for itself because it's amazing to watch this whole sequence. And also in the last video, and actually the video before, we talked about that 7 minutes of terror, right? That really, really kind of scary moment in the landing from high in the atmosphere down to the ground, where they have to slow down and launch a parachute and deploy the sky crane just to get the rover safely on the surface in a more dangerous location this time, and a bit heavier of a rover than Curiosity back in 2012 that had a similar landing, but this time is a little bit more difficult, and everything went very, very well. So it really is a testament to the ingenuity, the hard work, and the team effort it took to design and put this rover together to successfully make it down to the red planet. It's all very cool stuff. So let's take a look at this landing on Mars.
We are starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground.
Indicate chute deploy.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed, and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 440 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Heat shield set.
Perseverance is now slowed to subsonic speeds, and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
Nav filter converge. Velocity solution 3.3 meters per second. Altitude 7.4 kilometers.
Now has radar lock on the ground. Current velocity is about 100 meters per second, 6.6 kilometers above the surface of Mars. Perseverance is continuing to descend on the parachute. We are coming up on the initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
OVS valid.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Priming. TBA is nominal.
We have priming of the landing engines.
Back shell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
Kieran, Safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver. Sky crane maneuver has started, about 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO.
Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Wow. I don't know about you, but I think that is one of the coolest videos I've ever seen when it comes to space exploration. And if that doesn't inspire folks to pursue or at least explore science and engineering, I don't know what can. Just to see all of those sequences play out in high definition while it was done autonomously by the computers on board because of the distance between Earth and Mars. We're not able to control or joystick this live as it came down, is nothing short of amazing. And it shows you that we're getting better and better at these complicated maneuvers and landings all over the solar system. So it really speaks to the potential for what we can do in the future. So Perseverance has already captured numerous photos of the Martian surface, but here's the first high-resolution panorama, a 360-degree view of the landing site. This is, of course, Jezreel Crater, this 28-mile-wide impact crater that had water in it billions of years ago. And within Jezreel is an ancient river delta that was formed by the water coming in, leaving behind material on the crater floor, and depositing this material into layers that kind of rise above where Perseverance is. And that's the area that Perseverance will study. As we sweep across this image, just keep in mind this is made up of 142 pictures that were stitched together. These pictures were taken on Sol 3. Sol means sun, but it represents a day on Mars. A Mars day is a little bit longer than Earth day, so this would be the third Martian day, or the third day of the mission for Perseverance. And as we look across this image here, we can see the deck of the rover and all the instruments that are going to be used. We can see the immediate area around Perseverance, and scientists have already begun to identify and take note of interesting rocks and minerals and the regolith there to determine what kind of area that Perseverance landed in. And in the far distance, you can see some mountains. Those mountains make up the crater walls, and some of the mountains are the elevated terrain of the river delta. And so it's amazing to see this image and the detail here. Just keep in mind that the cameras on board Perseverance are very high resolution cameras, so they're going to give us the most amazing pictures we've ever seen from the surface of Mars. So it's going to be exciting what images are going to be captured by Perseverance and what we're going to find as it starts to drive around. Now, as we take a look at the highlights for the night sky this week, probably the best area to look at is in the early morning. And right now I have this situated early in the week at about 6 a.m. local time. So if you get up before sunrise, you may have a chance in the east and southeast to find these really cool planets. I like to call this a little planetary party going on, but you can also call this a conjunction when two or more planets get pretty close to each other in the sky. And what we have here are 3 planets. 2 of them are in the outer solar system, 1 in the inner solar system. So we can see the brightest one down here. This is Jupiter right here, the largest planet in the solar system. We'll zoom in just a little bit more to give us a better view. Just above it is the planet Mercury, the smallest planet in the solar system. So those 2 are getting close, and we're going to watch them in a second, get even closer. And then above those 2, a little bit to the right, a little bit to the south here, is the planet Saturn, of course, the planet with beautiful rings. Now, as we move through successive mornings this week, take a look at Jupiter and Mercury and their position. So let's kind of move ahead in time. This is on the morning of the 3rd, and you'll notice they're getting closer, then the 4th, and then on the 5th, you can see Mercury and Jupiter are very, very close here. So let's get a little closer together. And early in the morning, if you have a clear view of the horizon here in the east and southeastern horizon, you may be looking a bit through some haze because there's a little more atmosphere you're actually peering through. But if the atmospheric conditions are just right, you can see Mercury and Jupiter within a moon's width apart. Actually, they're actually less than half a degree, and half a degree is about the width of a full moon. So they're a bit less than that. I think they come as close as about a third of a degree. So this is a nice conjunction of the largest planet to the right and the smallest planet to the left, Mercury and Jupiter. So this is the morning of the 5th. Now, as we continue through these mornings, you'll find that they're going to start moving away from each other as we get past the 5th here. You'll see Jupiter kind of get a little higher up. But by the 6th here, Mercury will actually be the highest in the morning sky right now. It's called greatest elongation west. So Mercury is most west of the sun at the moment, which means it's highest in the morning sky by the 6th. And as we get to the end of the week on the 7th here, you're going to find they're even farther apart, but still fairly close. And again, Mercury, here's Jupiter, and then Saturn still a bit above, but you have a chance to see that planet as well. So this is really nice little grouping going on with Jupiter and Mercury kind of getting close, Mercury getting a little higher in the sky and then slowly drifting apart. And to make things a little easier, you may want to use binoculars while you're watching these planets. It'll give you just a bit better view of them. Just be careful of the sun rising here because it'll be very near sunrise, but hopefully you'll have a clear enough view to see these planets kind of jostle around in the early morning. As we look ahead to the rest of the month of March, the early morning sky is still really nice to pay attention to. So this is the end of the week that we just looked at here with Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. But next week, we'll have the moon entering the fray here. So here is our waning moon. And as we go into next week here, we'll see the moon get closer and closer to these planets. So this is actually by the 8th. But on the 9th, you're going to see a really nice almost lineup of these solar system objects here with the moon at a nice crescent phase. And then by the morning of the 10th here, the middle of next week, we're going to see the moon even closer to these planets. And again, just to keep track here, this is Mercury, there's Jupiter right here, and there's Saturn, and a very thin crescent moon. So if you have a clear view of the eastern horizon, later this month, you may see this really great grouping of objects that are within our solar system. And if you're a photographer, you could have a spectacular image of these 4 objects in the morning sky. For constellations to pay attention to for the month of March, we can still rely upon those great wintertime constellations and stars. So you can still find Orion the Hunter here. There are the 3 stars of his belt and the 2 stars that are bright at the shoulders and the feet of Orion the Hunter there. We also have his 2 dogs here, Sirius and Procyon, or Canis Major, Canis Minor. Gemini twins still above Orion, still high up. You can find there. And the Taurus the Bull that we see just ahead of Orion with the V shape of the nose and the Pleiades star cluster. And let's not forget above Taurus, we can see the really bright star Capella that's part of Auriga the Charioteer. So these constellations are still high up in the spring, even though they represent winter stars, but they're starting to slide to the western sky if you're out after sunset. And as we continue to kind of make our way around the sky here, what you can notice in the west are those fall constellations beginning to set. Even though fall is quite a ways away, we still had a long time to see them. They're kind of lingering in our sky. So we have the W shape of Cassiopeia here. Not far from that, we have the stars that make up Perseus, the mighty warrior. And next to Perseus, we have Andromeda right here. Of course, those 2 characters fell in love in Greek mythology. As we swoop around here to the north, what's great about the spring is that, at least for us here a little farther south, we have a better view now of the Big Dipper that we see here. So here's the Big Dipper and that large spoon-like shape that's part of a bear called Ursa Major. Big Dipper points us to the North Star, which is part of the Little Dipper. Now, for those who are farther north, you have a much better view of the Big Dipper for a longer time of the year. These are circumpolar constellations, so if you're north, they're higher up. But for us southern latitude folks, the Big Dipper is not always convenient in the sky, so it starts to get a little bit better, at least for the evening in the springtime. But let's continue to make our way around the sky. As we loop all the way around here, let's look towards the east. And what's great is we're starting to see more of those springtime constellations. And probably the best one that really stands out the most is Leo the Lion. Not too far away from the Big Dipper and the Bear Ursa Major. You'll see the head of Leo. Let's zoom in. That looks like a hook shape, the body, and then the tail right here. And the brightest star in Leo is this star here called Regulus. And so that's really one of the best spring constellations. Not far from it as well are the stars that make up Hydra the Sea Serpent here. Very large constellation that is a little bit dim. And as we circle around, making a full 360 degrees, we can see one more star I'd like to mention, and this is really best for southern latitude dwellers. But I wanted to talk about this because a star that we don't always get to see, but if you look right above the south, this is one of the best times of year to see the second brightest star in our sky. First brightest star that you can see at night anywhere from Earth is Sirius right here, right? That's part of the head or the neck of the dog Canis Major. But below that is the second brightest star called Canopus. Canopus is part of a ship constellation. It's part of the southern hemisphere. This is called Carina, the ship, and at the front or bow of the ship is Canopus right here. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, you don't have a great view of Canopus unless you're in more of the southern latitudes. If you're in the high northern latitudes, you cannot see Canopus. But I just wanted to mention this for those who may have a chance to see the second brightest star, just kind of get just enough altitude above the southern horizon, and then as we head more through the spring and closer to summertime, it will set again, and we won't see it until next year. Just a reminder, on the morning of March 14th, for us here in the United States and certain states around the country, we have daylight saving time. And that is when we spring forward in our time. It's always easy to remember. We're in the spring, we spring forward, and in the fall, we fall back, right? So we spring forward 1 hour for those states who recognize daylight saving time. It's not really a celestial thing, but what you will notice, of course, is sunset will happen later. So before daylight saving time, sunset will be kind of in the 6 o'clock hour, depends on where you are. And the night after, on the 14th, and after that, it'll be an hour later in the 7 o'clock hour. So you kind of have to adjust your sky viewing time, both in the morning and the evening. You do lose an hour of sleep. That's just the way it goes, but that's just sort of what we still do today with daylight saving time. Spring forward an hour and have our sky gazing time frame shift ahead just a little bit. Since it's already March, this is the time of year when we go through another equinox, which occurs on March 20th. For us northern hemisphere dwellers, this is what we call the spring or vernal equinox. For southern hemisphere dwellers, this is the fall or autumnal equinox. And this is the time of year when we have about an equal amount of day and night, when the sun's path in the sky, called the ecliptic, crosses the celestial equator, Earth's equator projected out to the sky. So after this point, at least for us in the northern hemisphere, our days will be longer than our nights until the longest day of the year, which is on the summer solstice in June. And of course, that's opposite for those in the southern hemisphere. So we can say for us, March 20th is the first day of spring. To wrap things up for this month, on March 28th, we have officially a full moon. And not just any full moon, but what we call a supermoon, which doesn't mean much in astronomy, but technically it's when the moon is a little closer to us and it's full. So it'll be a little bit brighter and a little bit bigger. It's not super noticeable, but this term has kind of popped up in recent years, and there's actually 4 of them happening in a row after this particular supermoon. So there'll be one in April, May, and June as well. So we'll end the month with a large and bright moon. It'll be rising in the east, opposite of the sun in the sky. This concludes another episode of our Sky Tonight program. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, if you're in the area in Daytona Beach, please stop on by our museum and check out our wonderful exhibits. And of course, check out the Loman Planetarium. We're doing shows every day and we're doing them safely, so we'd love to see you there sometime. But hope to see you back here again for another Sky Tonight tour. Thank you very much, Take care and happy stargazing.